Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Raw Life Health Show. I'm so excited to bring you guests who have been eating a raw food diet for a long time and them sharing their stories with you. And today we have a guest on the show, somebody I've known a very long time. Her name is Dorit. And welcome to the show, Dorit. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Paul. It's always a pleasure with you.
Well, great. So we're going to get right into it. As I interviewed several guests recently that were female and eating a raw food diet for a long time, I haven't found as many women as men eating a raw food diet for a long time, but I know they're out there, and I know you're one of them. And not only are you eating a raw food diet, but you're a promoter. You're promoting the raw food diet. You hold events and so on. So I want you to introduce yourself to my audience and tell people a little about yourself and what you do and who you are.
Yes, Paul, thank you. So I actually am really mainly fruitarian, but I was certified as a living food chef. And I usually don't say a raw food chef because I think it's strange to say chef and raw. And I also think that the real chef are the elements, the sun, the moon, the stars, all of the earth, the air, the water. So that's why I use living food chef. That's what I do for a living, along with teaching the Deepak Chopra meditation. I'm also a personal fitness trainer. I put them all together in a package because I see people as being one whole unit and not chopped up as different units. So it's something that I address. I actually do not teach raw foods. I teach people how to change their relationship with food because I think that's the core issue of why raw is become a fad and then people go on it, go off of it. It's a trend, they like it, then they leave and they don't retain it or continue. And they have so many problems because their relationship with food has not changed. So I think to be raw, one has to be raw on all levels.
So it's not a diet, it's a lifestyle, in other words.
Exactly. And it's about finding out about who you are and because food is the big connector for us with life, because when you eat food, if it's real food, if it's raw, you're eating all the 5 elements and you're restoring the 5 elements within you, which most people look at food as calories and as something that to actually quell their emotions or to stifle or numb themselves. Whereas food is actually one of the greatest way that most people can connect with their divinity, in my opinion. Because when you eat the 5 elements and restore the 5 elements, your body, we are our biology. And so your body itself becomes fine-tuned to the rhythms of the universe. And I think when our bodies become fine-tuned to the rhythms of the universe, all of us becomes fine-tuned because we are our biology. And so the quickest and easiest way, I think, and the quickest path for anyone at all to gain more vibrance in their lives is by becoming raw, not just raw vegan, but raw in their emotions, in their own intentions, and in the way that they see themselves.
Okay, so tell us, like, when you were growing up, did you have an issue in your life or get sick or something that turned you on to eating a raw and living foods diet? Or was it something you just gravitated to naturally? When did you first hear of the raw food diet, and where were you at in your own personal journey with it when you first heard about it and how you felt about it?
This is quite a story, Paul, because when I was a child, I would only eat fruits, nothing else. I would look at this papaya and I would salivate. And I would never, I would eat this entire mango, this big mango. I would eat this whole thing for a meal. And this was not something which anybody in my family were okay with at all. But that was all I would eat. So meal times were a big fight for me, especially dinner. I could get away with it because, you know, in Israel, we eat a lot of, it's all the foods in Israel that are uniquely Israeli are all vegan. So vegan wasn't a problem, nor was vegetarian. The problem was that I wouldn't eat anything else. So I only ate fruit until I was inoculated. And my memory was one of panic because the adults were holding me down and fighting me for the inoculation. I had no idea what it was. I was a very small child. And all I knew is I didn't want that in my body. And when I got inoculated, I ended up in the hospital because I became violently sick. And I remember my father leaving me in the hospital and being terrified. And I felt abandoned. And I thought this was a recrimination for me not eating fruit, because they told me that I need to eat more than this. And if I didn't get this inoculation, I'd be sick. And maybe I wanted so much to get out of the hospital, I decided to do whatever anybody wanted me to do. But every time they brought something cooked to me, I just didn't want it, until they brought me soup. And that was my first time that I ate anything that was not raw, or that wasn't fruit, was vegetable soup.
And how old were you at that point?
I don't know.
Okay. Okay.
I was very small. I was very, very small.
Okay.
I never do age, so I don't know any of this stuff about, when. But then when I became a teenager, I started eating much more cooked food, because I was told I had quite a lot of problems during puberty, and I was told that I had to eat the stuff. So I tried and I tried, and I just got sicker and sicker. Well, the reason I was sick, and I didn't realize it, because of the few cooked foods that I was already eating to pacify everybody in my family and to pacify everybody else. And so I never end up in a hospital again. I would never be inoculated again. Because I, as a child, thought the reason why they inoculated me was because I was only eating fruit. That's my understanding. That was my little girl, this child's understanding. So it was, then I moved to France, which of course, France, they have open air markets, but they don't have a lot of things that I love as fruits. I mean, you don't find a lot of things now, you do, but not back then. And I became violently sick in France, because every time I ate at the family that I was as an exchange student with, or with friends, they would sneak in dairy, especially butter and crème fraîche. And they didn't realize that for me, I almost died in Israel, actually, trying to eat yogurt, which we call shemenet and leben. And actually ended up liking it. And I almost died. And the doctor in Israel told me I could never eat dairy again for the rest of my life. Those are the only two things of dairy that I ate, because I also didn't like cheese either. And so I did, however, love this cake in Israel. That is, I don't remember the name of it in English, but I think it's like tiramisu, it's something similar, but it's not. And then when I was in France, I became violently sick with bronchitis, because they would slip in all of these butter and creme fraiche in it. Until I went to Paris, and I was in Paris, and I found this place in the Quartier Latin that sold this crudité sandwich. It's all crudité, all raw vegetables in a baguette. The baguette was freshly baked, and instead of using butter, they used freshly expelled fresh olive oil. And it was incredible. So every day I would walk to the Quartier Latin just to have that. And I loved it. And I felt well again. And then I moved to New York to work at the UN, where I was Israeli tour guide at the UN. And that's when the problems really began, because I could not find fresh fruit there, and it was very hard to eat raw. I went to all the vegan restaurants, and I had a hard time. So I went
in New York. What year was this?
I don't remember, but it was long ago.
Okay.
Very, very long ago, Paul. I don't do years. So
okay.
You'll have a hard time.
So you were having trouble finding raw food in New York and fruits in New York. Okay.
Yes, very much so. Well, I wanted only organic also, because I was just learning about Monsanto and what they were doing. And I was very shocked. And I met Rio, and she was telling me so much about GMOs and whatnot too. So it was very difficult. So I became macrobiotic, because I was very influenced. All my life, I've been influenced by the Japanese. And then I got even more sick from being macrobiotic, because it was a lot of cooked food and a lot of cooked grains and seitan and tempeh and things like that. And I didn't even really enjoy it anyway, except for miso soup. I love miso soup. Again, we went back to the soup. So I just started juicing a lot. But in Israel, juices are really easy to find, because they're everywhere. They're on the streets. You have vendors on the street selling fruits and selling fruit juices in Israel. So I started finding some juice bars in New York City, and then I started drinking that. Then I bought a juicer, and then again, I became healthier. But it wasn't until I got to LA that I found out about raw foods. And this is from the Beverly Hills Juice Club. Do you know Jennifer from the Beverly Hills Juice Club?
I believe so. It's been a while though.
So she was the one who said to me, how long have you been raw? And I said, what are you talking about? And she says, well, you only eat the raw, because she was selling like, raw hummus and things like that too. And I said, I don't know what you're talking about, because I thought I was eating fresh foods. I didn't see it as being raw. I saw it as being fresh. And so she said, she gave me this booklet by Victoria Kulvanaskas, and she said, look, this is what much of the stuff you eat. This is it. It's called raw foods. And that's when I found out about seed cheeses and all of these recipes, which I had no idea even existed. Because for me, I'm a mono eater. I like eating just the mango by itself. I wouldn't mix mango and papaya. This is just automatically, as a child, this is how I was, and this is I still am. Even when I was eating cooked, I would only eat broccoli. I would eat a plate of broccoli, but I wouldn't eat broccoli and something else. And so I got so sick, I mean, violently sick from eating cooked food, even just a plate of steamed broccoli. And it's only until I realized that I had no idea that was something called raw foods, but only when I realized that that is who I was, not what I eat, but who I was, that the light switch came on. And that's when I went to Living Light Culinary Arts Institute.
Okay. Well, you say you got sick. Like, when you say you got sick, do you mean you just didn't feel well, or did you medically get diagnosed with an illness?
In Israel, I almost died because of the Lebanon and the Shemenet, because of those two dairies that's similar to yogurt. And the doctor was put me on 3 different rotations, and he said, we'll do 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. And after the first rotation, when he put me back on, I became violently sick again. I was hemorrhaging out all of my blood. And he said, you can never in your entire life touch anything with dairy in it ever again, which is fine with me because I didn't like cheese and I refused to drink milk ever. I hate milk so much. So it was easy for me to give that up. But when I went home to my mother and I told her what the doctor said, and she was a nurse with Kupat Cholim, which is the National Health Association there, and she said, well, what am I going to feed you now? And then she said, don't tell me you're going to go back to eating only fruits.
Well, so more recently, so have you gotten a blood test or been, how's your health been more recently? Have you run into any problems?
Nothing, as long as I stay, especially on fruits. It's not so much raw foods for me, it's fruits. I am definitely a fruit girl. I thrive when I eat fruits. Now, I always ate only fruits during the summer. Even when I was doing some cooked, summers but it was winter that I started doing the, steamed broccoli and things like that. And I noticed that in the summers, I would thrive. And then I would lose some energy when I went back to some cooked in the winter, and I didn't feel myself, which means top-notch, tip-top form. And I felt like I was robbing myself of something. And that's, to me, I didn't put connection there at all until I went, Jennifer, the Beverly Hills Juice Club told me.
Well, give us an example of your daily diet. What's your daily diet like now?
Well, today is Saturday, so it's Shabbat. So on Shabbat, I usually do only juices or I fast. But on a regular day, like tomorrow, I will go to the supermarket, to the farmer's market, and whatever I find there, not because it's summer, it's very hot here right now, I mainly am eating just melons. So either I eat them or I juice them. I love to juice cantaloupe. Absolutely love cantaloupe juice. And so I really have a huge melon for breakfast usually. A midday, if their mangoes are ripe, I will have a huge bowl of mangoes. I can eat up to 8 mangoes as a meal. And then now we just started grape season, and of course we're full blown into fig season. So, and I don't mix any fruits because I don't like them like that. I'm back to my childhood where I only ate mono. And I don't eat dinner. I never have. I never liked dinner.
Sure. So, no blood tests recently?
I don't do any testing at all. My test is me. It's how I feel in my own body and in how I act, how much clarity I have in my life. Is the clarity that I know when I am not eating to my optimum. The clarity that I get when I eat fruits is astonishing on all levels. Not just because my skin and my eyes and my hair becomes very clear, but because me, I am so clear on any and everything that I'm doing, which is why I started the California Fruit Festival this year.
Okay, so I want to hear about that in a moment, but so I know you're not into age and dates and all this stuff. So do you know how old you are?
No, because actually when the last time that I traveled, which was before 2020, obviously, when I came in, they wanted to know, the US government, I'm a permanent resident here, not a citizen. They wanted to know my date of birth and also when I entered the country the first time. And I had to move away, take out my bags, go through to my birth certificate, and that's how I knew. But I don't know ever, because I never was an age. I don't do labels. I never have. It's just not who I am. It's not because I just don't like them. I don't like them for other people either. I think it limits us so much. And I think our lives, who we are, goes beyond any of these falsehoods that we have adapted to and that we have taken as truth. I was taught to question everything, and I do.
Okay, besides your diet, what about your exercise? Do you exercise on a regular basis?
So I'm very raw. Yes, I think movement. I'm also a certified movement therapist. I don't believe in exercise. I believe in movement. So I think exercise is prescribed, and then you have to do certain things. But I'm a movement. I was a dancer. I didn't tell you this. I was a professional dancer, a Martha Graham mainly, what's now called contemporary. And so I do a lot of dance exercises. I still do every morning, 50 minutes of dance. I don't know how to start the day without dancing for 50 minutes. If it's winter though, I'll go running instead. I love to run.
Okay.
I love the thrill of the breeze on my face and seeing all the plants and the birds and all the animals waking up first thing in the morning.
Well, you've moved and you live in California, which is one of the capitals of the world to get good fresh fruit. The fruit that you buy, at least in the United States, the fruit that you get, do you get it from local farmers markets or local farms, or do you have to go to like the health food store and find organic fruit? What do you do?
Mainly from farms or local farmers markets. So on Sundays, I go to 3 to 4 different farmers markets. So if I can during the week, I will go to another one by the beach on Wednesdays as well. That one is for chefs. So I'm allowed to go to that one because I'm a professional chef. And boy, is that one amazing. So much fruit, even in this winter. The beauty about being here is that I'm close to Mexico. And so we get a lot of fruits from Mexico, like my winters. I actually prefer winter for fruits because there's the cherimoyas from Mexico and the zapotes from Mexico and the jackfruit. And then of course we have pomegranates here and the persimmons. And I actually am a member of the Japanese wellness center called MOA Wellness Center. And they have they have a farm in Fresno. And so I get a lot of stuff from their farm. And the winter I get boxes of persimmons from them. And they have this method of drying persimmons that is truly only they do it like this. It is the most incredible jewels to eat but it's very difficult to make it and it takes a long time. So they only do it for about a week or two in the winter and then everybody pounces.
Yeah, well, how much fruit would you say you eat in the percentage of your diet?
Well, it's summer right now, so it's 100%.
Okay.
And this winter, I do try in the winters to eat some microgreens and sprouts. I wasn't able to this winter. I just didn't want any. So this whole winter, I just stayed on fruits the whole time, although I did try.
Do you take any supplements?
I was not taking supplements for a long time, but I started taking supplements lately, but it's not the usual supplements. Sometimes I do use E3 Live, but I love their spirulina. that you get from E3 Live, and I know Tamara and Michael very well, and they introduced me to their blue-green algae, and it's just amazing, and I like that. I also do take some Ayurvedic supplements. You know, I trained with Deepak Chopra, so I was trained as an Ayurvedic practitioner, which I don't do. I don't work as one, but I do still teach meditation for him. But so I do take some supplement for ashwagandha and some other herbs. I do some of Dr. Robert Morse's herbs, but only when I feel the need for them. And what do I mean when I feel the need? For example, if I know that today I have a long list of things that I'm doing and I won't be home much, because I do not just eat on the run. I actually was trained by Thich Nhat Hanh. So I eat mindfully. I sit down and I eat in silence. So if I don't have time to sit and eat in silence, I'd rather not eat. So that's when I do the supplements.
Do you spend much time, or have you over the years, in fasting?
Yes, on Saturdays, on Shabbat, I fast, and Yom Kippur, I usually do fast. And the latest thing I've been doing now, recently, I've been doing full moon fasts for 3 days. The full moon, I do fast now. Although this month I won't be able to do it because that's when I start my new show, is during the full moon.
Now, what's fasting to you? Does that mean no food? Does it mean just water only? Does it mean juicing? What's fasting to you?
Just water.
Okay.
Water. I think when you're drinking juices, you're not fasting. You might be fasting from solid food, but it's not a fast.
What kind of water do you use?
Coconut water and structured water from the fruits.
So you don't drink typical water. It's either coconut water or, so coconut water is the only water you drink pretty much.
Structured water. I make a lot of juices, and so I do get my water from the structured water. I do have, however, alkaline water always with me, just in case of an earthquake or any problems like that. But that's my backup. And I did go and get some yesterday because if I'm taking supplements, then I use the alkaline water for that.
Okay, so how often do you get coconut water, and where do you get that from? Fresh or from the store?
Fresh.
So how often do you get fresh coconuts in California, because they don't grow there?
No, we get them from Thailand, unfortunately. So it takes a long time for it to come here, and by the time it gets here, some of that, they're not as vibrant as when they were in Thailand when they were first picked. And so that is my only regret. Sometimes I'm able to get them from Mexico, but that's very rare.
And how's your sleep? How many hours a night would you say you get sleeping?
Maybe 4 or 5. Never needed much more than that. It's very rare that I sleep for long. I've found that in Israel, we have this siesta. We have to have siesta. I love doing that, taking a nap during the day. And then when it comes to nighttime, I go to bed right away. I don't work at nights. I don't do anything at nights. I'm an early bird. I always have been. So when people used to invite me as a teenager to parties, at 8 o'clock, I would say, well, what time's the party start? They say 9. I said, well, I'm sorry, I go to bed at 8. At 8 o'clock, I'm going in. When I like sunset and I like sunrise, those are my 2 favorite times of day. And I do not like missing the sunrise. There's something about that dusk, that time of day, as the shadows are giving way to the light, that just completely opens me up to the magic of the universe and the magic of being alive on earth that I love.
Okay, well, some advocates of the raw food diet and lifestyle would suggest too much fruit. They would use the words too much fruit is not the ideal way to do it. And I know each person's in their own situation, but what have your experience been with other raw fooders that are eating this type of diet? Do you see people always being successful on a high fruit diet, or do you see certain individuals not thriving as they should, and you just don't understand why, because they're eating a diet similar to yours?
The long time raw fooders, I think they're still thriving. That they are thriving. The ones who remain raw the whole time, they're thriving. But I think the reason why those who have come on board and were raw for a year or 2 years and stopped, or those who have been here for a long time and have stopped, I think it's because they have not changed the relationship with food. I think it goes deeper than the food and whether it's fruit or not. And yes, I hear a lot of people say, you know, oh my, you cannot eat all fruits. That's just ridiculous. And where do you get this? And where do you get that? And that you get the 5 elements. That's all we need are the 5 elements.
Okay, so you don't take any B12 supplementation or any green vegetable juices or things like this?
I do have juices. I mean, in the winter, I will try some vegetable juices. I will do some green juices. That's why I grow microgreens and I sprout. But this past winter, I was not interested in any of that. So yes, I've been in the past, but now, no, I just don't feel the need for it. I am very in tune with my body and my cells, very in tune. I spend a lot of time meditating and I'm very in tune with my own body. And so I know when it tells me you need to do this now, when you don't need to do this now. Again, it's all about a relationship with ourselves because our relationship with ourselves is indicative of our relationship with food.
So you take no B12 supplementation?
I used to. For a long time I did, but I didn't see the difference.
Okay.
I don't see or feel it.
And when's the last time you personally ate? And I know you don't do dates, but how long has it been since you ate an animal product? Has it been a very long time? Or
when that doctor in Israel, when I was a teenager, and that doctor told me you can never ever have lebanon and shemenet again. That was the only animal food I ever ate. Anyway.
So since you were a teenager, you've been vegan pretty much.
Wasn't vegan. I was born vegan. This is who I was when I went away from it. That's when the problem started. And I only did it with lebanon and shemenet.
Yeah.
And that one cake, which name I cannot remember in English now, but if I remember, I'll let you know.
Okay. And so what you do now is you're a chef, a raw food chef. Even though you eat a monodeal yourself, you still make raw food recipes for others. And you actually have a book, right, about raw food recipes.
2 books.
2 books.
Celebrating our raw nature, because I think that's our nature. So celebrating our raw nature. Yes, I have 2 books. Yes. And they have a lot of recipes and people love my recipes. And Paul, I have never, ever tried any of those recipes. They just come to me. I write it down. And people love my salad dressings. But I'm not eating them. It just comes to me. It's just something that flows out of me. And that, remember when I told you about clarity? And that when I eat foods, it gives me, that's what I'm talking about too. That there are times when the creative juices just start flowing, especially in the summer. And I equate it with eating only fruits in the summers.
So when's the last time you actually had a salad with a dressing?
Was a winter. It was not this past winter because I did try and I couldn't eat it. So probably the winter before that. In winter, I used to do that. I don't know what I'll do this winter. We'll see.
Now, there are many different types of fruits. There are sweet fruits, but there are also fruits that are non-sweet fruits, and there's fatty fruits. So when you talk about eating fruits, so like cucumbers are a non-sweet fruit. Anything with a seed technically is a fruit. A tomato's a fruit. Avocado's a fruit. When you talk about eating fruit, are you only talking about eating sweet fruit, or are you talking about eating all of the fruits out there, even the non-sweet fruits?
All the fruit. You remember, for breakfast in the morning in Israel, I was at an Israeli salad. That's all fruit. It's red bell peppers, cucumbers, tomatoes. We do put radishes in ours. It's olives. Olives is a fruit as well. People don't realize that olives is a fruit. And we always started off with a strong, big glass of orange juice. So I'm not eating the way that I was brought up. I'm back to eating the way that I was brought up. This is what I used to do, and this is who I am.
That's an important distinction to make for those of you that are watching this or thinking about this lifestyle. Is a lot of us hear fruit or fruitarian, and they just focus on the high sweet fruits. But there are so many non-sweet fruits. Pretty much everything we eat, other than leafy greens, is almost fruit. You know, so we want to be careful with that and not just sit there all day and eat dried fruit, because something like that, or super sweet fruit, because that's not necessarily what Dorit is talking about. She's talking about the variety of all the fruits. So technically anything with a seed is a fruit, and that's what Dorit is talking about. She just likes to eat things as close to nature as possible and in the most natural form as possible, and that would be the fruits with the seeds and the nuts in them. What about nuts and seeds? Do you eat nuts and seeds at all?
In the winter, yes, very much so. I love macadamia nuts. And I love Brazil nuts, but you have like a handful of Brazil nuts because you can't have more than, shouldn't have more than a handful. But I love, 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 love macadamia nuts. I eat way too much macadamia nuts sometimes in the winter, but I love nuts. I love, you see, another thing is in Israel, we have the nuts in the shell and we crack it. So when I can find pecans, chestnuts, and walnuts in the shell here, I will have that as well. And I found a farmer at the farmer's market who also brings now the macadamia nuts in the winter to the farmer's market in the shell. But have you ever tried cracking a macadamia nut shell?
I have a nutcracker, so it does it for me.
It's destroyed 3 nutcrackers for me. And finally, last year, I found a nutcracker from France that is indestructible, but I still have a hard time opening up those macadamia nuts.
Yes. So when you say you never taste your recipes, so I would never eat your recipes. I mean, when you're making them, do you taste them at all? Just to say, oh, well, I'm going to put this one in a book? No.
That's why I always need my clients' feedback.
Okay, so you let other people taste them before you publish it. You say, what do you think?
No. I give them like that to my clients, and I ask for their feedback afterwards.
Okay. Okay. Do you ever get a feedback, a negative of them?
Sometimes, yeah. Most of my clients, they love spicy. And so sometimes I overput ginger, like about 2 weeks ago. I really use way too much because I don't just put ginger in or grate it. I make ginger juice. And so I put that in. And because I want to give people say they love my gravy. I don't have gravy. What I do is I juice everything and I put it in. When you look at my book, the Celebrating Our Raw Nature, you'll see that actually the base for anything that's I make, especially with any kind of dressing, is celery juice. And I juice almost everything, but the base is usually celery, and that's what makes it salty.
Okay, what about garlic and onions? Do you personally consume garlic and onions?
Not usually, although my favorite restaurant here in Los Angeles is Olac, and they have a living foods menu. And about once or twice a year, when I have visitors, I will go there and I will consume, but I cannot eat much. So usually their one plate will last me 3 or 4 days.
Sure. All righty. Well, besides your books, you're promoting the living and raw food lifestyles. I know you had a big event online and also in person in California. It was like a fruit festival, and you've been promoting raw food festivals pretty much throughout your life, and that's how I met you. You were promoting them way back when. You continue to do so. So tell us a little about that, about your promotions and what you do with all that.
So the reason why I wanted to bring about the California Fruit Festival is that many people believe what you just said to me, that we live in California that has the best fruits. That's not really true anymore. And they're so expensive now. This one mango, $5 to $7. One mango. So what I wanted to do with the California Fruit Festival is to bring attention to the fact that not only are fruits healing, but also what you said before, that fruits are not just sweet. I had a wide variety there so people could see the wide variety of fruits. And some people, have Israeli salads and things like that. But when they come, they're very surprised that it's not just sweet fruits. And that's what I want to do, to educate people that fruits is anything that has a seed in it, but also that they don't need to be afraid of eating sweets either. And I think it's because they mix it with other things too much, and then they put this with that, and they're always mixing it where the problem is. But the reason really for the California Fruit Festival was to stop the commodification of fruits, because it's so expensive now to eat fruits here. It's almost like an elitist thing, and that really bothers me. And my newest thing now is to start creating community gardens in every neighborhood. So I love what you're doing, Paul. I love what you're doing in Florida. But you have 100 fruit trees.
Yeah, so the idea of the fruit and in general, in the United States, besides Florida, California is the best place to grow fruit in the United States. And if somebody is just like myself, I only want to eat food from the United States. You know, you got California and Florida. Those are the two main places. I mean, of course, you can get peaches from Georgia. You can get cherries from Washington. But for the main part, those are the two superior places to get fruits in the United States. As you say, they're becoming so expensive. They are, because it's product and demand, and a lot of people are not eating fruits. So the people that want to eat fruit, since it's so limiting in product and demand, there aren't as many people eating it or growing it, and you got to find them and search them out. But the Mediterranean climate fruits that won't grow in a tropical climate of Florida will grow in California, and it's so exciting when you find a new grower or a new farm, and you get to know them, and you get to taste fruits you've never tasted before. It's so wonderful.
And I love living so close to Mexico. And before 2020, you know, we could jump down there for a weekend and get all these fruits. It was a treat. And what was great, a lot of people actually left California after 2020 and went to live in Mexico. They didn't have any restrictions there. And it used to be you could stay there for 6 months, and now it's up to a year.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, I have met people that have moved there from California to Mexico, and they absolutely love it. They say it's beautiful there and everything's cheaper, and the food is so much better. Very interesting.
That's the problem here now. We're getting a lot more fruits now. We're getting them from abroad, but they're too expensive. They weigh out of most people's pockets. You know, it's just ridiculously expensive.
Now, here's a problem, and this is why I think a lot of people fail at eating the living foods diet and the raw food diet is the quality of the fruit, not just the fruit. So most of the people around this world, and this country especially, are going to get fruit from the store. And I think there's a tremendous quality loss when you get fruit on a commercial level, because they have to pick them earlier, unripe, and so on. And I think when that's the majority of your diet is store-bought fruit, you know, it's not gonna, your body's not gonna thrive as much as it would as if you were eating the way we would in nature and picking at the right time and so on. I didn't know that until I started growing my own food and realizing the difference. So like that mango you have there, hold up that mango again. So you are correct. That's a $5 to $7 mango. That's how much they go for now. They're up to $5 or $6 a pound sometimes. But you see now, is there a name on that label? So you got that from the store or from the farmer's market? You're in California, so where'd you get that, from the store or the farmer's market?
I bought it day before yesterday. This one is from the store.
And is there a name of the mango on the label or no?
This is a store called Erewhon, which if you know,
I know about Erewhon, yes.
Ridiculously expensive. But I love these mangoes so much, and they're just now in season. They're the first ones that had them. So because of that, I treated the scent.
Now that mango, for me, it looks like it's not from this country. Am I correct?
No, it's from Mexico.
It's from Mexico. And is it a Kent mango? It looks like a Kent mango.
Yes, yes, that's exactly what it is. Yes.
Yes.
And
okay.
you know this papaya? Do you know the price of this papaya? How much I paid for this?
The papaya in California is $5 a pound.
I paid for this one. It was 11 something, almost $12.
Okay, that's pretty inexpensive, actually. Well, maybe not. I mean, it's expensive for a fruit, but that looks like it's a good amount of pounds.
But you see, for breakfast, if I have this for breakfast, that's $12 for breakfast. It's absurd.
Sure, sure.
You know,
papaya is actually the tree itself is actually not a fruit; it's a weed, and they grow so easily here. And but again, is that an organic papaya?
Yes. Oh yeah, I only do organic. Oh yeah.
Okay.
It has to be organic, otherwise I'm not getting it. Especially for papaya, because they're genetically modified. And
well, the ones in California are genetically modified. I mean, in Hawaii are genetically modified. Not all of them are, but a lot.
And Costa Rica.
Costa Rica and Mexico, I would assume as well.
Most of our papayas we get from Hawaii and Costa Rica here.
Wow.
And those genetically modified. So that's why the problem. So it's an issue, and that's why the California Food Festival to change this.
Yes, yes. Well, I want to remind everyone to seek out local farmers and growers and grow yourself if you can. Not only is California a wonderful producer of fruits when you could find the farms, but it's one of the best places to grow fruit trees in the world. if you have the property to do so. And you don't need a lot of property to grow trees. So I want to encourage people to do that. That's wonderful that you're everything you're promoting and everything you're doing, and you're feeling great. And I know you've connected with a lot of people who've been eating a raw food diet for a long time. Who are some people that you've met over the years that have stood out to you, that have encouraged you, or just that you've been, in agreement with or following over the years? Because you say, I know you know a lot of long-term raw fooders.
Well, when I was still traveling before 2020, I used to teach a lot in Toronto, and Marie, her place was called the Toronto Sprouts. All of us used to go and do a lot of workshops there, and she was the one who encouraged me the most to teach the sacred art of eating, which is to change our relationship with food of everyone. She was most definitely the one who encouraged me most. Brian Clemens, dear, amazing supporter, even although I'm mainly fruitarian, still an amazing, incredible. I don't think I've ever asked Brian for something he hasn't said yes. He's one of the biggest supporters, I think. Dr. Doug Graham, very amazing person, quite good friends with him. Lately, I've met Grant Campbell, the raw Aussie, the marathoner, the ultra marathoner. Delightful person. Chris Kendall, another delight as well. There are so many people. Ted Carr in Canada again. A lot of the people that I really like were Canadians that really were huge supporters. In fact, most of my supporters were in Canada, and that's why I used to go there a lot and teach. And you were saying about the fruits from here and the produce from California. When I went to Toronto, it was interesting. And I used to live in Toronto before I came to LA. When I went to teach there, the produce was unbelievable. It was like they were just about to burst, just from freshness and from beauty. Like the greens were greener, things I never saw. And then when I look at it, it says, from California, I went, nah, we don't get this there. So I said to the person who always invited me to go, this was at the Big Carrot. And he said, oh, that's because in California, when the farmers grow food, we get the best fruits and you get the leftovers. That's why. I mean, because what they were getting there, I never see here in the farmers markets. I couldn't believe it. I was shocked. And he explained why to me. And that's why one of the reasons why I became a member of MOA, the Japanese Wellness Center, because they have a farm in Fresno. I get things by the boxes as soon as they're picked.
Wonderful, wonderful. That's great. Yeah. That's just so wonderful. And so what are some more things that you've I know it's a lifestyle, it's not just a diet and so on. So what are some things that you once thought about, like the raw food diet and lifestyle, but your opinion has changed about it? So something you were very strongly a promoter of, but then for whatever reason, your opinion changed about them over the years.
The people. I've been disappointed by some of the leaders in the raw food movement that they were into a lot of hype. That's why, I was so thrilled to reconnect with you, because you're one of the few who seems to have stayed true and seem to be so dedicated and so devoted. And there are not many of us. I mean, it's okay if somebody decides not to eat total raw again. I have no problem with what people eat. We need to live our lives for ourselves. But then to be promoting it when you're not doing it, I find that to be quite false and very disappointing. And integrity is huge for me. And so that's the problem that I have had.
Yes, well, you are doing wonderful, and you're just doing so much for the community. And I want to encourage everyone to check out your website. I'm going to put a link below. Tell everybody your website and how they can get in touch with you. I know you're on social media as well. But again, I'm going to put the link to your website below. But tell everybody about your social media and how they can best get in touch with you if they desire to do so.
So what I just said to you about how disappointed I was, I actually took myself out of the raw food movement for a while, and I came up all of social media. I am now back because I was offered to do a show for Jane Velez Mitchell, and it's called the Elegantly Raw Show, because I think nature is elegant. So when you're raw, you're eating elegance. And so because of that, I now have to be back on social media. So now I'm on social media. And my website is elegantlyrawdorit.com, DOREET.com. And next week, I'm starting a new show for On-Chain TV, which is the On Cooking Show. And that's going to start filming next week.
Very good. Very well. Very well. And your website is what?
Elegantlyrawdorit, DOREET.com.
Okay, I'll be posting that below. And I thank you for your time for this interview. It's wonderful. Thank you. Keep up the great work you're doing and the vibrant lifestyle you're living. And have fun out there in California as much as you can. And I look forward to seeing you somewhere soon at another festival or somewhere. And thank you again. It's good to connect with you after all these years. Everybody get below the video to the link and have a great day.
Nature's wealth, good for your health. This is the Raw Life Health Show. Raw Life, brighten up your life.